You are in for an interesting ride.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ETN interview. I am your host, Joanna Summerscales. This interview is a little, well, it's not exactly off topic. It's slightly to the side because certainly it features in most of the experiences, those who I do talk to about their experiences of things ET. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm going to be speaking to Robbie Crossan, who hails from Scotland and is something of a psychic, a paranormal investigator, an exorcist, a past time regression person, as well as that of astronomy. And I do believe he's had a sighting too. So we're going to find out what has prompted Robbie's interest in this field, which has become, as he says, a little bit of an obsession. His wife, too, is also a paranormal field investigator. In fact, that's how they met. So, as they say, it runs in the family. So let's get ready. Let's put your feet up, get yourself a coffee or a tea, maybe some popcorn, and let's enjoy what Robbie has to share. Seatbelts. So, as I said, we're here with Robbie Crossan, and we're going to hear about the paranormal side of things, the exorcism side of things, and some field trips and a whole lot more. So welcome, Robbie, to the ET Newsroom. This is a slight departure for me. I'm often speaking to and interviewing people who've had ET experiences, but I know you've had a sighting. So let's start with that.
Yep. Well, it was roughly about 15, 16 years ago. I was outside the house having a smoke and I was just looking up at the night sky because where we stayed was dark sky area, and I spotted a light coming from north to south, so I just assumed it was a plane because it was so high up, and it got to a certain point and just stopped and hovered, and I knew it was too high to be a helicopter. Then all of a sudden it just shot from where it was pointing to the west coast and it just disappeared, and I knew nothing could take that kind of trajectory at such a high altitude. I mean, it was travelling at a straight line, stopped, then went 90 degrees. So I called out the kids, then all of a sudden it went the opposite direction, so back from where it came from. So it went from west to east, stopped, then shot back up north. And think to myself, I don't know anything that's been man-made could do that. And I knew it couldn't be a satellite because satellites don't do that either because they spin around the Earth or stay static.
Well, it sounds like it actually stayed around for your kids as well. What did they think?
Well, they were kind of young, but they just thought, oh, cool. But as the kids got older, I started taking them out to study astronomy. I had a couple of telescopes and we would take them down to a place called Loch Doon, which is the darkest place in Scotland. And we used to go and take photos of the night sky. And well, we got a few meteorites and asteroids, and we get a few planets, but nothing I could say was spaceships or anything. Loch Doon, it's just at the border of what used to be Strathclyde and Galloway. It's a forest range. It's roughly about 100 square miles worth of forestry. And it's that dark, if you actually put your hand out, your hand disappears.
A huge factor, of course, is the paranormal activity that seems to go hand in hand with other intelligences or ET or aliens, whatever you want to call them. So Robbie, let's get on with your story. Where did you grow up? And just tell us a bit about your sensitivities and sensibilities as a child.
Well, I grew up in Glasgow in the 1970s. I never had any brothers or sisters, so I was kind of a lonely child. So I had what was called imaginary friends. So I used to see and hear things everybody else thought was my imagination. Then once I turned 13, an event happened that was witnessed by other people. Basically, I realised then that wasn't my imagination because it was family members that witnessed it, other people outside the family. So then I started studying, went to the libraries, get every book I could because back then there was no internet, no TV shows, no social media.
Let's just go back because that was 1985, if I recall. What happened and who was involved?
What is my cousin, who was more like a sister, used to stay with us. She wasn't well for quite a long time. And on the 28th of December 1985, she was admitted into hospital because she was really ill. And she said she was going to leave the hospital if she wasn't out by the 31st of December, which is quite a big celebration in Scotland. We call it Hogmanay. She said if she wasn't out by then, she was going to sign herself out and spend New Year with us. So a few hours after she was admitted, she sadly passed away. Then on the exact stroke of midnight, on the 1st of January, the door knocked, so we just thought it was what we call first footers, people that come into your house to welcome in a new year. So my mum opened the door and the house became really cold and we could smell Nancy's perfume. So we thought Nancy's spirits came to pay us a visit. That was like the way my mum explained it. Then a few hours later, the little girl who stayed down the stairs from us in the next flat, she came up and she chapped the door with her mum and she said, can she speak to Nancy? And my mum and her mum had to explain to her what happened. She went, well, no, because she can't be dead because I seen her coming up to your house last night when I was going to my grand's house.
And how old was the little girl?
She was about maybe 6, 7 years old at the time.
Oh, okay. How fascinating is that? And would that correlate to the time that you heard the door knock?
She would have went into her grand's house roughly about the same time because she always went to her grand's house for midnight to first foot her gran and her granddad.
And for those who don't know, actually, we used to do it in my family. On the stroke of midnight, somebody would take a piece of coal, I think it is, and run around the house to bring it in. It's
either coal or some form of cake or a bottle of whiskey. It's just to like ward off evil spirits and welcome in new spirits. It's tradition. A lump of coal, some food, or a bottle of alcohol.
Yeah, I think we had a little celebration. I think that's what I was getting at there. So this little one saw Nancy, your cousin. Do you and she speak about any paranormal stuff?
I was 13 at the time.
So she was 10 years older than you?
Yeah.
And did you guys speak about anything to do with paranormal, or was that in your life at all?
I always had a fascination with kind of horror movies. The first movie I seen was like Poltergeist when I was about 10 years old. And I just thought to myself, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I never thought anything else of it.
So when you're saying do that, what do you mean?
For instance, what the little girl in the movie could do, like she could see and hear things just randomly.
So then you're saying that you could see and hear things a bit like a medium?
Yeah, I think everyone's born with that ability. Kids have always got what people claim to be a hyper imagination, so they can see things, they talk to things, they play.
Yes, with imaginary
friends. Yeah. So once you get to a certain age, you're told to grow up, peer pressure, you want to act not kind of normal, so you kind of push that out like your life, then you start losing that ability, but some people don't actually lose it.
So did you have some experiences then as a youngster, sort of pre-teen, I guess is what I'm asking?
Just walking about places, I could see at the corner of my eye, like shadows, I could sense other energies or people that weren't there. I could hear what could be only explained as hear voices in my head. Then like people talking, some people asking for help, some just want to play, that kind of thing.
I know there's obviously when people see that clairvoyance, clairaudience, when people hear, but also people say it's also clairaudience sometimes internally or externally. It could be within your own mind, but somebody else's voice. Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, it was always different voices and different accents as well.
And so you seem to be a point of connection, a conduit perhaps. Did that frighten you?
No, really not. It's something I've always only ever known. So you don't fear something you've always had.
So did you ever see externally, as in clairvoyantly, or were you always the sort of clairsentient, you'd feel it?
No, I would feel it, but sometimes I do see them. So if they want to be seen, they'll show themselves. All spirits, for some reason, they might not want to be seen out of their own fear, or they just don't understand. Like some pass away suddenly due to an accident. They don't realise on the other side they're free from injury and pain, so they don't have to take their last physical form. They can come back and show themselves at their most happiest time. So I guide spirits into doing that as well. Okay,
so just moving up through the years though, so that 13-year-old event when you smelt your cousin's perfume and could really feel her around, the room changed, energy, it sort of went cold. I felt those things for myself. I haven't smelt perfume so much, but I was standing at a bus stop once and actually smelled this familiar pipe smoke smell that my paternal grandfather would use. I was quite surprised, so he must have reached out just to let me know that he was perhaps around. So it's fascinating stuff, how these sensibilities come into play. And that wasn't a frightening experience either. It was just, oh, okay, then that must be Granddad. I wonder what he wants. Let's move forward a bit. Tell us your background. What did you do in life?
Everyone, once you leave school during the early 80s, you were told to get out for a job and pay your bills, or you weren't staying in your parents' house anymore. So I started off in retail, and my very first job was in Scotland's biggest department store. Started off as a trainee, worked my way up to management within about 5 years. Left that, opened up my own shop. In between, I was still practicing and studying paranormal. Then in the 1990s, I studied to become a priest. I was a seminarian under the Roman Catholic Church. I left that because the more I learnt about Vatican law, the more I realised that it's a secret man's society and there's a lot of things I didn't agree with them. So I became ordained as an independent Catholic priest, and the bishop at the time, I had an inkling of what I could do, so I thought I was going to be excommunicated and kicked out. And he turned around and said to us, right, you've been trained as an exorcist. And I went, nope, I've seen that movie and I don't want to be any part of that. And he's like, well, tough, you're doing it. So I get trained up as an exorcist and I've been one ever since, basically. Yeah, 1997,
Okay.
actually qualified.
You said the more you learned about Vatican law, it's a secret what? I didn't quite catch what you said.
A secret man's club.
Oh, okay. Can you elucidate? Because most people will have no idea about that.
Well, for instance, I go by one commandment, love one another as I loved you. That's like what Christ taught us. Yet the Vatican, they refused to allow women to be ordained as priests. Mary Magdalene was a priest. She went out, preached the gospel. She was equal to the apostles. She wrote her own gospels as well. But the Vatican refused women to be priests, even though she was one. From the 11th century, they stopped married men being priests. So they put a new law saying that all men have to be celibate. I don't agree with that either, because God expects us to marry and have families. And also this thing about refusing LGBT community equal rights to the sacraments as well. I don't agree with that, because no one can help the way they were born. So because I couldn't agree with those rules, I didn't feel right that I had to follow them. So I left that organisation.
In what way then were you trained in the Catholic tradition as an exorcist? So you came out of one stream going, say, to be what, a fully ordained priest? And
yeah.
So rather than be a priest, you took part of the knowledge. Am I understanding that correctly?
Technically, you still need to be ordained to be an exorcist if you want to do it safely and properly. I know there is other exorcists out there who aren't ordained, but they would have had to have went through the same rigorous training as what I've went through.
How long was the training?
For me, it was in about 3 years, 3.5 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of what that entailed?
It's just like any other type of coursework. You go to a classroom with other students, you've got to read books, study mad, you've got to take coursework, you've got to then go out in the field with other people. Well, basically, you just study case files, so you read up on the books. Sometimes, I don't agree with it, but some priests used to film exorcisms. I mean, I don't agree with that, so we'd watch them. Then we would go out in the field with a lead priest and basically assist him. So we would first of all, we would stand back and watch. Then we would assist when we felt ready enough. Then if there was like a minor exorcism, like one that wasn't so dangerous, we would be told, right, you take the lead on that one. And you had to do so many. The lead priest had to basically say, right, either you're ready or you're not ready to do it alone.
So were these priests that taught you, were they different ones, or did you have just one person? And were they, I take it they would be a priest, would they, from the Catholic Church?
Yeah, well, you had one who was like like a professor. So he would be the head of them. So he would be the one actually teaching us. Then for field work, he would appoint people who he could trust, who'd already qualified. Then they would come out with us, basically show us the fieldwork and show us the ropes, the practical side of it.
And were these priests from the Catholic Church? Were they Catholic priests?
Yeah, the independent Catholic as well. Yeah, they weren't part of Rome either. They're independent from Rome.
So you're fully Roman Catholic, but you don't have anything to do with the Vatican or their establishment or their hierarchy or anything. Is that right?
Yeah, we go by majority of their rules, but the only difference is we allow women and married people to be priests, and we allow LGBT to have full sacraments.
Are you able to share any of the protocols with us? Is it like we've seen sometimes in these movies?
The movies do have a little bit of truth to them. Like, for instance, when you see a movie, it's like over and done within about an hour and a half. But a case can actually take between 2 and 6 months before you'll even go to the person, because you've got to do a full investigation and evaluation. You've got to make sure there's no mental health issues. You've got to do a background history in the family. You've got to do a background history on the property, on the land. Then you've got to question other people outside that circle to make sure these people are telling the truth.
Do you have a particular case that would be interesting for your...
Yeah, well, one I did, was it last year? May, I think it was. The lady contacted us the November before it, and she just said that things were happening in her house. Like, she'd moved into a property and things started happening slowly over like the span of about a year or two, to the point it was physically affecting her husband and her son, to the point it was like splitting up the family. Well, to start with, it was just little things moving about the house, there's things appearing that wasn't there before. They could feel an energy shift. So negative energy was causing like more arguments. Their autistic son was acting up more than he should normally be, to the point where it was ripping apart the family in two. Then the woman started getting bruises. She was starting to get scratch marks. If there was any religious relics in the house, she was wanting them out of the house because she couldn't bear them to be in the house, like crosses or little pictures of Christ or whatever. And it was affecting her mentally, emotionally and physically. It was affecting her more than it was affecting anyone else in the house.
You were called in and you did some work with the family. But what was the history that you found? Was it property-based?
It was land-based more than property. There was something on the land that was affecting not only her, but apparently it was affecting a couple of properties. But I didn't deal with them because they didn't reach out and ask for help. But she did say that other people have felt similar things, like neighbours.
Are we talking about Scotland here, Robbie?
No, this was a place outside Doncaster, but apparently as well there was about 5 tenants in that house before that lady, and they all felt the same and had to move out the property.
What was your experience?
As soon as we walked into the property, you could feel something wasn't right. 2 of the people I took with us to help us with it, they ended up with scratch marks up their back and up their sides, and it was like 3 scratches, which is like a mock to the Trinity. They could see things like shadow figures that just looked evil. They could see things that actually frightened them as well. As the night was going on, and as we were doing the ceremony to get rid of it, the woman started violently shaking. She was foaming at the mouth. She started getting scratch marks in her face and her arms. You could see her face slightly changing shape. Her voice became deeper. She started speaking in different languages. And by the end of it, when she said, I can hardly speak English, let alone anything else.
Gosh, and what about the rest of the family? Were they there when you were...
The husband was there, but the son, because he was autistic, we asked if he could stay with family members that night, because people with disabilities are more vulnerable. So it's harder to protect.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the child to be in danger, so I asked if he could stay somewhere else that night.
So how long did it take for you and your associates to, help this lady?
Once we got to the property, we were there for about maybe 10, 12 hours roughly, but it was like months of prior investigation before we actually showed up to the property. We did see Like I've got like a lot of equipment, so we could see things moving on like full spectrum cameras, like things moving slowly, like little ornaments turning slightly. Temperature gauges were moving, so you could see a fluctuation in temperature going up and down. We've got machines that give out alarms of like an energy disturbance. Those were going off, so there was definitely something there.
And did the cameras show anything?
The cameras actually did show shadows. Like you could see shadows going up and down the hall and going between rooms. That was video. As I said, we just use that for research. Then we delete everything after the research has been noted for our own personal use.
Yeah.
We don't, as a personal choice, I don't keep any audio or video in case it gets into the wrong hands, because I treat every case as private.
Of course. What is the cost?
Just travelling expenses to get there. The cost of putting petrol in the car from here to their house, then return journey.
Gosh, that's very generous for such work, dangerous work. I've done a little bit of what is called rescue work. It's not like a possession or exorcism, and we would work from often a meditation perspective to guide the spirit to the light.
Yeah.
Get out of their stuck environment. So, and we've got a picture, Robbie, also. It looks like blood on your hand. Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, what it is I teamed up with two other teams for a weekend's worth of investigations. So one of the teams knew of an abandoned mill in, I think it's Bradford. She knew the history, but didn't tell anybody else the history of the place. So we were at the ground floor to start with, and she went, right, what can you sense? And I could tell her, like, there was a little teenager, roughly about 14, 15, who kept staring at us, and she confirmed there was a boy there. So we went up to the top level, and I went, right, he's not coming in this area. And she went, why? And I explained, this is where he died. He's scared of this place. And she confirmed that as well. So then we went down to the basement, and it became a lot darker and more heavier. There was like some child spirits there, and there was also a couple of women. The cameraman said he could feel somebody behind him, so I put my hand behind him, just feeling the air. And when I brought my hand back, he spotted something in my hand, and it was like red, and it was the shape of a cross.
What did it feel like?
It was wet and sticky like blood. So I rubbed it away, and I noticed like there was no cuts, no scratches on me, so I knew it wasn't mine. Because it was the shape of a cross, I thought it was like protection. During the night, we got more and more information coming through, and I sensed there was at least one woman who was killed there. Then later on told at the end of the investigation, there was two women murdered in that location in the basement, both by a policeman. Somebody tipped the policeman off. He was about to be questioned for it. He did a runner and committed suicide, and they reckon his spirit is still down there, and that's what we could feel, like the negative entity.
Very interesting, Robbie. Just want to pick up talking about these exorcisms. How many have you done?
As lead investigator, I've did 5 exorcisms, 3 of them in Scotland and 2 of them in England.
Do you get a lot of calls about exorcisms? I mean, it's such an extreme thing, isn't it?
I do get quite a lot, but because of distance, I've got to, like, it's not just here in these islands, but from all over the world. People contact us, or I'm referred by people. So what I do is I'll do like a basic questionnaire I'll ask the people to fill in. And if I can't personally deal with it myself, I'll pass it to someone I know who I can trust, who can deal with it in that area.
I also imagine that you really have to be a pretty strong character to be able to withstand what might come down the pipe. And let's just quickly talk about what does come down the pipe.
A lot of people think possessions are demonic, but that's not always the case. You do get the odd 1 or 2 demonic cases, but a lot of the time it's just evil spirits, evil people that have lived and died. If you die with an emotion attached to you, you take that emotion with you. So if you die peaceful, you will leave peaceful. If you die happy, you will leave happy. If you die confused, you will leave confused. If you die in anger, you'll leave in anger, and you'll take those emotions with you.
And this lady, I mean, that sounds to me like, you know, pretty much an extreme case. Have you had many like that?
I've had 2. Well, she was the second case like that one. Very similar.
Well, tell us about your paranormal group.
Yeah, well, when I was in Scotland, I had a team, and we were called Haunted Scotland. We Are Not Alone. Like, I would bring people in that were interested, like just normal Joe blogs who would say, can I come out with you just to experience it? Some of them would want to actually join the team, so we'd train them up. Then you come out when you want. Whatever you experience, you take that with you. I mean, paranormal is not an exact science. Parapsychology is not an exact science. Some people will stay for months or years. Some people will quit for various reasons. And some people want to join, like create their own teams. So I'll teach people a safe way of doing it, kind of thing.
Because you said you actually met your wife on a field trip.
Well, it's not actually a field trip. What happens is I watch a lot of paranormal shows. Teams now do live stream investigations on Facebook. So, like, I'll come across a team, I'll watch them for about a month or two just to get a feel of them. And if I like what I see, I'll start commenting on their posts. A few years ago, I don't know how I came across this team. It just appeared out of nowhere. I started watching them, liked what I seen. A month or so later, started communicating with them. Like, to try and build bridges, normally what I'll do is I'll offer their team leader a free past life regression. But in this case, I kind of messed up and I said to her, offer all your team members a past life regression. And I'm thinking to myself after I've done it, hold on, I've just gave this full team, there's 4 of them, when I should have only gave 1. I kind of honoured the agreement and I gave them all a past life regression. And the third person I did was Manda, and we just started talking. Then we started, like, during the past life, we started talking. Then we would text each other, like, maybe every couple of days, then texting each other every day. Then we were constantly throughout the day. Then one day I was like, bugger it, we'll start phoning each other. So we started video conferencing each other. And after about 2 or 3 months, we decided, right, even though there's a 300-mile distance, we're going to just go for it and see where it takes us. So we kind of set up a long-distance relationship. We met up a few times. I would come down to England and she would come up to Scotland, and we would spend like a couple of weeks with each other each time. Then it got to the stage where we're like, right, something's got to give. Somebody has to move. And because, like, all my kids were adults and I was living alone, there was nothing really keep me in Scotland. So I decided a few years ago to move down here. Now we're a kind of family.
Lovely. That's absolutely great. So you've got an extended family now as well.
Yeah.
Are they interested in this field?
Our niece and her sister are investigators also. They're part of her team. Our kids know what we do, but they don't want anything to kind of do with it. Like, just like my kids, they don't want anything to do with that.
Are there any of them that have the sensitivity like you?
My kids, one of them does, yeah, but he doesn't really do anything about it. He just ignores it. One of her kids does have it, but he's still a bit young for me to do anything about it. I need to wait a couple of years because I've got a strict age policy of 18. So once he's 18, we'll start, if he wants to do it, then we'll start training him. A couple of times, like for instance, if teams go out themselves, especially teams close to us, if something happens they're not capable of dealing with, I'll need to go to them and basically give them a cleansing because something's attached to them or something's followed them home.
I know that popular show Skinwalker Ranch talks about hitchhikers, meaning that, and I know from my own experience, I'm also a regression therapist, and one of my cases was extreme. This young lady who had been perfectly fine was basically taken over. There was a human involved and something else. And when I say something else, I don't necessarily mean ET, certainly some entities, some other thing with some invested interest in her. And when I started working, this thing manifested, and it manifested in sort of a slight shadow, but it was the power from it was really strong. And I can't stand bullies. And this thing was trying to hold on to this lovely young lady whose mental health had gone down the toilet. And, you know, she was absolutely terrified. She was so terrified, she wet herself during the session. And it was really extreme. We kicked his butt or her butt, and they left the premises one way or another. But that was, really incredible. This is something to think about with past life regression, with the ET element of things. People can have experiences which are incredibly challenging, which they need some support just whilst they're acclimatizing or assimilating the information. You know, well done you. I think this is important work that you're doing.
Well, Ghost Adventures is a big problem. It's people are watching these shows giving it, oh, I can do that, let's go out and do it. Then they go out, they don't have a clue what they're doing, then they end up sometimes in real danger. They're trying to copy what they see on TV and they don't know how to protect themselves, and then they go home. Basically, the proverbial hits the fan.
I would definitely say to anybody thinking about it, be careful, and if you want to join a group, join somebody who's experienced like Robbie, or at least have somebody, if you can't be with somebody like Robbie, then somebody who you'd be able to call like Robbie. So this is serious stuff as well, you know, isn't it? You do some past time regression work, you call it. Walk us through that, Robbie.
Like, a time regression is very similar to a past life regression, apart from it's not your own timeline you're going back to, but you're going the location's timeline. So I can throw people back where their consciousness is in the same location, but it could be like hundreds of years in the past. They'll be able to see that location as it was. They'll be able to describe what they see. It's like them watching a pre-recorded movie. So they'll be able to tell us what's happening. For instance, just a few weeks ago, one lady actually was standing in a building. What we know now was there before the building previous. And she's seen a man in some kind of period described outfit. He was standing next to a well, which we knew was there at the time. It's now been capped off. But she didn't know that. She experienced him throwing a child's body down the well. Again, she didn't know that, but we had prior knowledge of that happening. Then she gave us a date, an exact date. Then when she came round, I was at her, what did you experience? She told us everything. And I went, right, I'm going to show you something. We took her round to the back of the building, and there's a stone embedded into the building now. And it's the tombstone of the little girl, and it's the exact date of which she explained, and she did not know that stone was there.
The next piece of footage is an excerpt of Robbie on location taking a team member through a regression session regarding the area.
Silence now, please. Right, so just listen to my voice, ignore the rest of the world. Every word I say will relax you more and more. I need to take 3 slow, deep breaths from me. 3, 2, 1. Now allow your mind to rest. Just nod if you see a light appear in your mind's eye. Just focus on that light. Visualise it. Allow that light to grow. With that light comes heat. That heat will help you. It will relax you. Will keep you safe. Allow that heat to grow. Let it rest on your shoulders. Feel it warm to your neck muscles. Relaxing every cell. Allow the light to grow. Allow the heat to travel down your body, surrounding you, wrapping around you, keeping you safe, relaxed and warm. Now in a moment I'm going to count back from 3 to 1. You will walk through that light and you'll be standing in this location at roughly 100 to 200 years before today. 3, 2, 1. Be through that light. Allow the mist to fade. Allow the fog to lift. And just tell me what you're seeing.
Nothing.
Just focus. Is there any light at all, or is it just now darkness?
There's a bit of light.
Allow that light to grow, light to get bigger. Ignore every sound you can hear through your physical ears. It's just my voice. And whatever you hear through time, allow it to grow, relax. Allow your mind to travel. Allow your spirit to travel back in time. Is the light big enough to walk through it? Go through it. Allow that mist and light to fade. And you'll be standing in this location. It'll be either 100 or 200 years prior to where we are now. Just relax and allow the visions to come into focus. Just describe what you're saying.
Like some sort of concrete flooring.
Okay.
like it's got pattern, like a brown and white pattern on it.
Is there any walls surrounding that floor?
Like brick beam. Like brick beams rather than walls.
Does it look like the beams that are here just now? Or does it look older?
Older.
Okay. And when you just to wander about that room and describe the furnishings,
Rusty.
is there any humans about the rooms?
No.
Just want you to wander through into another room for me and describe what room you're in.
The room and like tiled wall feature. Yeah, there's a feature of a woman in a big round circle on a wall with a wooden chair.
Okay. Is there any other furnishings in that room?
No, it's just a wooden chair.
Okay, just want you to go through the front door for me and describe what you see outside.
Like a well, like a wish, like them things you turn around.
A water well.
Yeah,
Okay. Just turn round and look at the building you came out of. Describe what that looks like.
it's old. It's very, very old. There's no walls. It's just beams, but there's like a roof, a tin roof.
Okay. And is there anyone there? Any humans?
There's a gentleman.
Can you describe what he looks like?
He has a tin helmet on,
Okay.
moustache.
Yeah. What's his clothing like?
He's wearing like dark green jacket, like army jacket, trousers, but plain dark green. He's got something in his hand.
Just concentrate his hand. Tell him, do not be afraid. You're just here to get help and to get some information. Just tell me what he says.
He's saying, do not enter.
And what kind of accent do he have?
American, like an American accent.
Okay. And why have you not to enter?
I cannot tell.
Ask him what year it is.
1807.
Okay. Does the man feel threatening to you?
No.
Okay. Ask him why he's here.
I'm guarding.
Advise him this is your land and you demand to know what he's guarding.
The secret. He's guarding the secret.
What's the secret?
He won't inform.
Advise him if he doesn't inform, he must leave your land.
He's refusing to move.
That brings an extra facet then to your work. So you do a lot more. You've also become an instrument maker, because of the cost, and perhaps we can talk about what
Yeah.
instruments there are that you guys take with you and what you've been doing. 'cause
There's
that
not
sounds-
many like online stores or shops that sell equipment that you see on TV. I mean, I'm not a big fan of using equipment. I prefer using my senses.
A woman saying hello there.
Might well.
Is there anyone who you want to speak to? Someone who you want to speak to?
Ben.
Bev?
Ben, Beth.
Bev? Is there a Bev here?
Not here this end.
No, not here.
No, she was that end.
Don't know about that.
Do that again. Step towards that ball again. Thank you. That is absolutely fantastic. So tell me, what does it mean you say box protect? Oh, you're still there. Just step away from the ball. Could you step away from the ball a minute? Step away. Right, step towards that ball if you're... Oh, yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Heaven.
Heaven. Thank you. Step away from that ball. Right. Thank you. Right, could you step away from the ball, please? For a second. Thank you. And again. Oh, thank you very much. That's brilliant. And again. Could you step away from the ball? No, you're still flashing it, are you? I'm getting a bit of activity with this cat ball.
Edmund.
Edmund. What? Thank you.
Outdoors.
I'm getting quite a bit of activity with that ball. Again. So I had the name Melissa come through and then it started flashing the ball. Can you go towards the ball again? You don't have to be afraid of Paul. He's not going to harm you.
Can you move the ball?
Step towards that ball again. Show me you're still here.
Shush, listen.
Is that a command, is it?
Oh.
You need to move it. Roll the ball.
Roll it.
In this photo, you see Robbie on the right and a little ball of light above. And in this one, there is a child captured, faint but there.
Up the stairs we go.
We're going up them if I was pissed.
Oh God.
And if you take people out with you, they want to see bells and whistles going off. I get fed up being ripped off. The prices are just beyond a joke for some of the equipment. So I started learning how to build it myself. I would take other people out in other teams. They would see the equipment and say, where did you get that from? I would explain, built it myself. They started wearing me down to build it for them. They then told their friends, who then would come to me and wanted me to build it for them as well. So it kind of, word of mouth, got the ball rolling, and now I build no thrills basic equipment. For instance, there's one, it's called a music box. I mean, there's one that's been sold in a little plastic coffin-shaped box, and it's motion active, so if anything, any type of heat signature or energy signature passes by it, it'll activate this little box and it'll play a musical chime for a couple of seconds. those can be sold anything up to £800. And there was no way in hell I was paying that. Being a Scotsman, I don't like spending money anyway. So I found out exactly what tech is inside this case. Now, I can actually build and sell them for like £100, which is £700 cheaper. And the only difference is the shape of the case. I've built a couple of custom things for clients, like a motion active doll. So when anything walks past it, its eyes light up and it gives out a creepy laugh.
Oh. As if that's not enough to frighten you.
Dolls freak me out anyway. I don't like them, but just the joy of ripping the head and neck and arms and legs off this thing to put the tech in it was quite satisfying. But also build electric-magnetic devices that are good, because you know yourself, when you go out, you can sometimes feel drained, like your energy's being sucked out of you. This revitalises the energy in the room, so it pumps out between 1,500 and 2,000 milligauss of energy into the room.
Wow. Okay.
So it just stops your energy being drained.
And what about cameras? I was just thinking then, the question is about the ET side of things. When people go to take pictures of craft or an ET, their equipment is always drained. So do you think your equipment would be strong enough to...
As I said, these EM pumps, they're good for just small investigations. I was at a place about 4 years ago where I thought to myself, right, I had 5 on me at the one time. I always keep spare equipment in case the battery drains. I don't know why I did it, but I set all 5 of them off at the one time. And I don't think that was the best thing to actually do in a place that was already highly haunted, because things started happening. It was creeping out everybody, including myself. We were getting, toys were starting to play with no batteries in them, or without the winding mechanism working. They were starting to go off. But these things have been known to help stop your equipment being drained.
Well, that's very interesting, because so many experiences have reported equipment working that's not plugged in, doesn't have batteries, isn't switched on. Amazing.
Yeah.
You might find yourself another layer of clients.
But these little devices are good. They help a lot to stop your batteries, because batteries cost a fortune nowadays.
How are they empowered or powered?
There's a high-powered motor in it, and it runs earth magnets. It causes earth magnets to produce electric magnetic field, which is pumped into the energy. It's battery operated.
Okay, interesting. How have you found that working? Has that been effective?
It does help, yeah. I use it half an hour before every investigation I do. If I take out teams, if we just go to abandoned buildings or graveyards or whatever, I'll switch it on for half an hour, do a little walk round. Then by the time we've done the walk round and had found our bearings, we turn it off, then we start the investigation, and it does help stop the equipment being drained.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting, because I would have thought you would have left it on throughout the session.
No, because it does give you a sore head after a while. Yeah, if you leave it on too long, it does start affecting. It gives you a pounding headache.
That's very interesting there, Robbie. Really like to know is, do you get referrals from the church?
I get referrals from everywhere, not just members of the public, but churches, regardless if it's Christian or Catholic, non-Catholic. I can get referrals from other teams.
Do you run courses, Robbie, online or anything?
No, I don't agree with courses. I mean, the people say, oh, come for a paranormal investigation course and you get a certificate, but they're not worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah.
There's no one can truly say they're an expert in this field. There's no experts, there's no professionals. We all remain students. But what I do is, if someone comes to me and asks for advice, I'll give them tips and guide them through what they need to want to know, but I don't run courses as such.
Tell us about your link with the Ed and Lorraine Warren, and tell us, for people who don't know, who they are.
Well, Ed and Lorraine Warren are the modern day parents of paranormal investigations. They're an American couple who met, I think it was in the 1940s they met. Lorraine was a medium and Ed was a self-trained exorcist. He was the first exorcist who was not ordained to be licensed by the Catholic Church to help them do cases in America, and not only in America, but around the world. I mean, they did the Enfield house. They're most famous for doing the house that was
It's
the
Amityville. Yeah.
Amityville.
And just for people who don't know, Enfield is the incredible case of Enfield in London, where there was an amazing scenario there. I don't know if you want to quickly give a overview of that, and then the
Yeah, well, the Enfield, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s to start with. A young family stayed in that house. One of the daughters just started acting strangely, and she was starting to change. Then the family realised quite quick that the house was possessed by a previous tenant. And not only that, there was possibly a monk there as well from a disused monastery. It was part of the land many hundreds of years ago. Were really nasty, negative people. And it got to the stage they feared for the family's life, and they had to call in the Warrens to come out and perform an exorcism. I mean, according to case files and what you see on TV, they were only there for a few days, but they spent months at that house. Got to the stage where it could have actually took their lives as well.
There's quite a lot of information out there about the Enfield incident as well, and well worth for anybody who's interested.
They've made a few movies about it.
Yeah.
The second Conjuring movie was based in that house.
And tell us about the Ed and Lorraine Warren's Amityville house experience.
Yeah, well,
in case people don't know what Amityville means or is,
Yeah.
can you just...
Amityville is a place in America, and there was a house. Well, the house is still there to this day, and there was a family in it, and we don't know the full extent of the story because there's a lot of conspiracy theories. But one of the sons shot his whole family, his parents, his siblings, and he said the devil made him do it. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. They tried to claim he was psychiatric. He was slightly nuts to get him away from the murder charge. That wouldn't stick up, but he was eventually jailed for life and he died in prison. Ed and Lorraine were the ones, so they went to the house, investigated, and said there was a demonic possession there. A lot of people say they believe the Warrens, a lot of people say they don't. The evidence shows that even after a new family went in after them, things started happening. I mean, that house has had several families living in it, and they don't stay that long. It's not so much the building, I think it's the actual land around it. It's haunted or get something wrong with it. There's a possibility it may have been on Native American ground, and there's a lot of unhappy spirits that don't want white people or colonists having their land, and that's why it keeps happening.
There's the Warren Legacy Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Ed and Lorraine Warren set up their own foundation where they would train people to become exorcists. They built up a worldwide network. So if anyone, doesn't matter where you are in the world, if anyone needed help, there'd be somebody close by to help them. After Ed and Lorraine passed away, their grandson, Chris McKinnell, took it over. It's like a charity organisation. They don't pay a salary for doing what they do. And they rely on donations of others to get them from A to B.
And what's Chris McConnell's do?
Well, he's now the head of that foundation. He's like an exorcist. It was his grandfather, Ed, that trained him how to become an ordained priest and exorcist. So he travels the world now. He spent a couple of years in Scotland. He spent some time in England, been all over Europe. And I think presently he's in South America working just now.
Did you do some work with him at all?
No, I didn't have the pleasure to actually work with him, but I have spoke to him on many occasions. A couple of times when he stayed in Scotland, like on Zoom, anytime I've got a case, I'm not even 100% sure, I'll contact him or I'll contact someone else just to hear their perspective, to get a fresh set of eyes and ears.
I came across it's a headline that was talking about, this is in Belgium, seems to be a huge ticking in exorcisms. Many exorcisms a week are being requested by the public, and the priests say they actually can't keep up with the demand. So I don't know if you've heard that.
Well, it's not just Belgium, it's worldwide now. It's happening. It's because the negativity is happening in the world. I mean, you've got conflicts between different countries. A lot of poltergeist activity is caused by negative activity. or negative energy. Say, for instance, you and your partner are constantly arguing in the house. That creates a negative energy. That energy builds and builds, then it starts manifesting things. And this is what's causing it. Less than 1% investigations, well, less than 1% of people that claim they need an exorcism actually needs one.
Okay.
So that's why it takes months to evaluate whether one needs to be done or not.
Is them in the majority of cases, do you find that it's land linked more than possessing spirit of the property?
A lot of the time it's to do with the land. Maybe once in a while it's to do with someone in the property, like maybe an ex-resident, an ex-tenant that just doesn't want to leave and it doesn't like somebody sharing their home. Then you've got the odd occasion where something's been summoned that has never been earthbound to start with.
Okay, and can we just quickly mention the Ouija board? But I didn't like it at all, and I didn't, I think I only had to go a couple of times. And I know some people get very fearful, and there can be some very serious issues that arise from people contacting through Ouija boards, unsupervised and without really knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, well, a Ouija board is just like any other tool. Used correctly, it can be done for good, but make a mistake, then you're in trouble, just like any other tool.
Yeah.
You're basically, when you use any type of equipment, you're opening a doorway between this world and the next to communicate. So you need to be respectful, you need to be aware of your surroundings, and you need to make sure your guard is up. And don't take anything for granted. Constantly ask questions and reword the questions just to see if you get the same answers. I've been doing this for nearly 40 years, so for me it's now automatic. I'll protect myself by prayer. I'll put a barrier around myself. I'll do the same for people that are like in my team. The best bit of advice I can give is, if you've never done it before, don't attempt it. Do your research first. Read up everything you can get a hold of. Then what you do is ask a reputable team that is in your area if you can go out and follow them.
And how would you know who a reputable team is? Where would you go for that information?
What you can do is you can Google teams in your location, then you can find out if they're on Facebook. Do what I do, watch a team for a couple of months just to see what they do. Just study their investigate.
So
try and find out if there's anything they're doing they shouldn't be doing. For instance, you shouldn't be mocking a spirit. You shouldn't be trying to intimidate any spirits.
Well, that seems like common sense to me. People are at. But you've got a website, Robbie. Do you have any links or contacts there?
On my website, I've got, it's always links. Like, for instance, I've got a page for past life regression. So if anyone wants a past life regression, they can contact us via that link. Or if they want direct spirit contact, if they wish to communicate with a loved one, they can contact me through that page. If they just want guidance to learn how to use their own abilities, they can contact me. Or if they've got something they're not sure about, like they need something investigated, they can contact me through that.
Thanks very much. And as we come to a close, and thanks for your time, it's been really fascinating. Have you got any closing comments or anything you'd like to say to folks listening?
Yeah, if anyone's needing any help, don't be embarrassed and ashamed about it. Just reach out to someone. This is happening to me. Can you help me? I don't know what to do. If there's anyone wanting to learn, again, look for a local team. Don't do anything silly. Don't try and copy what you see on TV, because that's not going to end well. And always make sure you find out if the people you're going out with knows how to protect you.
Okay. Well, that seems sensible and good advice. So thank you very much, Robbie Crossan. And with that, we shall end